Hey there, we have like eons of stories to tell, so if you want to follow us along on this journey and keep up with all the stories that we have putting out, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hey, what is up, everybody? Chad is here, and today we're continuing with Adam, the Legend of the Blue Marvel. Now, this story, it doesn't pick up exactly where we left off last time. Well, sort of it does, but it doesn't. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Okay, so we're pretty much in 1962. We're in the Pentagon, and they're basically trying to find out a way to keep tabs on Adam Brashear, right? Because like they told him to stop being a hero. Now they don't know what he's doing all the time, right? Like they can't, just look out the window and see him fighting a monster or an alien or something like that. Like, they have to actually, put in some work. So what they're gonna do is send in a spy, and they're basically gonna find this woman, and they're gonna have her go in and like get cozy with them, stuff like that. So like they're like asking her, they're asking her about like colors, right? Like how do you feel about colors, stuff like that. And she's just like, I mean, I don't know, like I never really thought about it, like I don't hate them, I don't love them, they're just people out there, stuff like that. So like when he asks her like if she has a fiance, she's like no, and he's like good. And this is where we find out this is his wife. This is Adam Brashear's wife, right? The woman that he was married to, and she's basically telling him who she is. She's actually Marlene Frazier. That's her real name, right? Like she was sent in as a spy to pretty much keep tabs and report back to the government. Like tell them what's going on, tell them what Adam Brashear is doing. Basically trying to make sure he's not going, doing nothing that they don't see is necessary or fit, stuff like that. Pretty much keeping him out of the way. As you can imagine, this actually makes him like super sensitive. Like he's real emotional at the point, right? Like he's like super sad, because he feels like everything that him and Marlene have went through was pretty much just a lie, right? Like she's basically betrayed him, like she's betrayed their love, stuff like that. Like she does actually love him, but it's hard for him to believe it at this point, knowing that she was sent in and they didn't just actually happen to meet each other naturally, right? So she starts like telling him, like what happened, like how she was tasked with going in and like keeping tabs on him, stuff like that. And like before she even did that, like she had to go in and read all this stuff about like being black, stuff like that, learn about all the history of African Americans, all this different stuff, right? Like she literally put in all this different work, and eventually they met each other, right? Like her car, quote unquote, broke down, and Adam Brashear like happened to walk by, and like he helped her, and they ended up meeting like that. That's basically how it happened. But it was actually all set up for them to meet, pretty much, right? So with that happening, eventually she started getting too close. Like she actually started falling in love, right? And that's when she was told that she can't do that, right? And eventually they cut ties with her, right? Like the Pentagon had cut ties with her. They didn't want her reporting back to them anymore, stuff like that. It was basically just a dead mission, pretty much, right? And eventually she stayed with them, right? Because like she loved him, stuff like that. Because there was actually this point where Adam Brashear, he actually bumped into this white dude by accident. And like this dude, like him and all these other white guys, they get like super aggressive towards him, right? And eventually he just walks away, right? Like these dudes, they're like super aggressive. He just walks away, right? Like he doesn't want to kill these dudes, right? Knowing that he could, like very easily, he just walks away, right? That's one of the things that actually like made her fall in love, right? Because he's a very gentle person, like he doesn't want to cause harm to anybody, knowing that he could, right? So eventually like he gets pissed off and he ends up like leaving, right? Like he leaves and, he's like asking her like what's your real name? And she's like Marlene Frazier, and he says, I think I would have liked Marlene, and he just flies away, right? So we find out there he actually flew to the moon, right? Like this part is funny because like he's sitting there, right, and he has like the Medal of Freedom that he has, stuff like that. And the Watcher shows up, right, and they're talking like they basically like met each other before, right, which they actually have. And what he's saying is like like I saw all that, I know she's human, stuff like that. Like she's she made a mistake, right? Like it wasn't like that big a deal, just like that. And then they start talking about their first time meeting, right? When he came up there with the Blue Marvel, when he first got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, right? Like he got the medal, he flew up to the moon, and what he does is he was so pissed off at it, like the fact that he couldn't be Blue Marvel anymore, he threw the medal at the moon and pretty much almost split it in half, right? That's what the Watcher says. He was like, you realize you could have broke the moon in two, right? I live here. This is my home. Like you're gonna break my home? Like that's messed up. Just like that, right? And when he shows up, this is the funny part. He shows up and like Adam Brashear, he's like, okay, we're all the way on the moon and I still have to deal with angry white dudes with attitudes. And and the Watcher, he basically like turns himself black and he's like, is this better? And Adam Brashear is just like, no, not really. That's actually not better at all, pretty much. So from there, they start talking, right? And he's like asking him like who are you? Like who is this dude? Like who are you? And he says, I'm the Watcher, right? I sit here, I don't really do nothing, but I watch everything, right? I record the events that go on, stuff like that. And basically when Adam Brashear asks him like, why I'm here, right? And the Watcher, he's like, I mean, yeah, I know exactly why you're here, but I'm gonna change your mind, right? So
what happens is like he starts telling them, and he's like telling them that, you know, what's going on Earth, that's natural, okay, that's gonna happen, right? Like, it's not good, but it's gonna happen, right? Like, even with the Creep, that really old race, even they had these problems, right? There was blue skins and they had pink skins, and they would always, like, you know, be at war with each other, right? Like, it's just it's natural for some reason, you know, stuff like that, pretty much, right? Trying to, like, you know, convince him that humanity isn't yet doomed, right? They can evolve, right? They can become better, which is actually what happens. But eventually, there's this armada that shows up, right? Like, there's like this alien invasion that's literally showing up to go to the Earth, right? And when Adam Brashear is saying, like, I mean, yeah, like the humanity probably deserves it, right? They probably deserve to get eradicated. But when the Watcher says they could annihilate his entire planet, Blue Marvel takes off, right? He's not just gonna let that happen, right? Like he's a hero. Even when the people on Earth, like literally everybody on Earth, like, hates him, he's gonna do the right thing, right? Like this is the true definition of a hero right here, right? So he goes out there, destroys the entirety of this alien fleet, right? And what they find out is this is like the alien fleet from that alien that he fought on his quote unquote last mission, right? Like when the president sent him out to go and fight that alien and basically fend him off, hoping that they would both, like, you know, disappear. This is from them, right? And with Adam Brashear in the present day realizing this, you know, like, he remembered, like, what he went and did, right? Like, even though everybody hated him, you know, he went to go and save all these people, right? Because that's what heroes do. And he realizes he's got to do it again, right? Like, he has to come out again and be and, you know, don the Blue Marvel moniker, and he has to go and save these people, right? He's the only one that could take out Anti-Man. He has to go and do this, right? And when that happens, Anti-Man shows back up, right? Like, he shows back up on Earth, right? Making his return, and he's gonna try to finish his mission that he was on before he left the first time, right? So from there we go to S.H.I.E.L.D., right? We go to the helicarrier, and we're basically with Tony Stark, right? Like, Tony Stark, he's talking to Reed Richards, and what they're talking about is they're basically saying that Anti-Man has returned, right? Like, they found this huge power spike, and they basically know that he's back, right? But they can't go and do anything yet, right? They're not strong enough, none of them are powerful enough. They can't really take this guy on yet, right? Like, they have to plan, do all that other stuff until Adam Brashear shows up, right? He shows up and he's just like, Director Stark, I hear you wanted to see me. So from here, we actually go to like a flashback, right? It's basically Adam Brashear and Connor Sims, right? There's basically like beating up these guys who are, like, you know, talking trash to Adam Brashear, right? Because, you know, he's black, you know, stuff like that. They had actually burned an effigy. It's basically like a carving into his bedpost, right? So this is like just showing like how close they were, right? Like, they were bros. Like, Connor Sims, if anybody messed with Adam Brashear, Connor Sims is there to crush you. Like, it wasn't really it wasn't a question, it wasn't a statement. He's just like going in, right? So we go back to the helicarrier, right? And like, Adam Brashear, he's talking to Hank Pym and Reed Richards and Tony Stark. And if you notice, like the way he's talking to them is very aggressive, right? Like, he's not letting his guard down, right? Like, he's talking to them very he's very haughty right now. Like, he's not really like talking to them with any measure of respect, right? So the first thing they try to do is they try to apologize to him, right? They try to apologize to him because, you know, all the stuff that he went through in the 60s, you know, like him being a black man, you know, stuff like that. And what he says is, you know, that's not necessary, okay? Like, you don't have to do that. It wasn't nothing that had anything to do with y'all, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, it's not necessary, okay? Like, y'all don't have to apologize for nothing, you know. But from there, he's like asking Tony Stark, like, what do y'all need? And he's basically saying, we need your help. I mean, like, you know, we've tried to fight this dude. We can't do it. Dude is too strong. And he turns to Reed Richards and he's asking him, I mean, yeah, okay, Reed, you've noticed the gamma radiation coming off of him? And Reed's like, yeah. And Adam Brashear is saying, okay, yeah, it's still going on. You know, stuff like that, right? Basically talking about the negative link that he has to the antimatter universe, right? Because that's where he draws his power from. Like, he's basically a link to the negative. He basically draws on antimatter to power himself, right? What he's saying is, he's like, every time that Anti-Man like leaves and goes back, he's basically drawing a bridge from the antimatter universe to this universe, which will in fact destroy this universe, right? Because, like, when antimatter meets regular matter, it just still exists. Like, nothing happens. Like, it just disappears, both of them. So with that happening, they're basically on a timetable to, like, you know, stop this guy, right? Because they don't, everything's gonna be gone. So when Reed asked him, like how did all this happen? Like what how did he become this thing, right? Adam Brashear, he tells him, right? Basically what he was doing is, when he was a scientist, he was trying to, like, harness antimatter, right? Like, for this new power source that hadn't been used before. He was basically trying to harness it. And when Reed says, I mean, that's not possible, is it? Adam Brashear says, I mean, yeah, but, you know, I did it, you know. I did it. And what he says is, when he's working on his antimatter reactor, it exploded. It exploded, and like Adam Brashear and Connor Sims, they were the only two that survived it, right? They were the only two that survived it. And what it did is it gave them both this crazy amount of power. But Connor Sims, when he was hit with the explosion, he disappeared, right? He became unstable. He wasn't, you know, like Adam Brashear, just a stable antimatter reactor, right? That's basically all they are. So from there, like, you know, he starts there. Iron Man is just coming to him. He's just like, okay, yeah, I know, you know, like all that stuff that you went through, but we really, you know, need your help, right? Like literally they're just trying to plead their case, right? And Adam Brashear, he's just like, I mean, I was told that my services were no longer required. He knows he's gonna do it, but you know, he's just like messing with him. He's like, I was told my services were no longer required. And Hank Pym just says, I can't believe you did that. Like everything got progressively better after the King assassination. I can't believe you were gone that long. Like you were gone for 40 years. And Adam Brashear says, I mean, were you there? Like that didn't happen overnight. That wasn't something that just, you know, just up and happened. Like people didn't just overnight think, oh, let's stop treating black people this way, right? It's a bad thing. Let's you know, treat them better, you know, stuff like that. This is like the difference between hearing about a situation and actually being there, right? Because Adam Brashear, he lived through it. He could tell these guys all these different stories and stuff about how this went down that they don't even know about. They've probably never even heard of. So when he's like trying to explain to them, like, you know, like I'm not necessarily sure if I should be doing this, Iron Man, what he says is, so you're just gonna, you know, you're just gonna leave and they're gonna turn your back? Adam Brashear, you know, he gets like, you know, real aggressive again, right? He's like, first off, I never said I wouldn't help. Secondly, don't ever put words in my mouth again. And they're just like, okay, like they're trying to figure out, like they're trying to talk to him like with some kind of like respect, but Adam Brashear, he's not having it, right? Like he's still very aggressive towards them. He ends up like taking off, right? And they're just trying to figure out like what was with the attitude, right? Because he had like a real crazy attitude, you know, going on with them. Like even though he didn't know who they are, he was very aggressive towards them. And they're just trying to figure it out. And Reed's just like breaking it down to him. He's like breaking it down, and he's like, I mean, he was a prisoner for, you know, a really long time. Like every aspect of his life was like basically crushed by that executive order. Like, I mean, we can't expect him to be nice to us, you know, stuff like that. And what Hank Pym says is, I mean, that was a long time ago. You know, things changed. Like he has to let it go, you know, like he can't just hold on to that forever. So Reed, like he starts breaking it down to him, and what he says is like, you know, like we say that all that stuff is over, right? Like we say all that bigotry is over. We say that doesn't matter anymore. It was a real long time ago. It doesn't even exist today. But how come the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, all these other different groups besides the X-Men are treated as heroes while they're treated as, you know, criminals to the world, right? They're treated as like a second class of people, right? Like they're not given the respect and stuff that all of us Fantastic Four and Avengers members are given, you know, stuff like that. And what Hank Pym says is the fact that they were born like that, right? Like if they were to have children, you know, stuff like that, they could be so born with the same kind of powers, and, you know, like have a higher potential to do to be a threat, you know, stuff like that. Is the way that they're born a good reason to treat them the way that we do, to hate them, to fear them? Is that fair? Like, is that how the world should work? So from there we go back to Adam Brashear, right? And Adam Brashear, he's basically going to the Mariana Trench, and he's looking for his old base. And in his base, you know, he's like looking around and he sees his blue marble suit, right? Like he goes there and he finds his suit, and Namor's there, right? Namor, you know, like he starts asking Adam Brashear, like why are you here? And Adam Brashear, he's like telling him, like, the Avengers need my help. Anti-Man is back. I don't know, you know, if I should do it or not, like, you know, stuff like that. And what he's saying is like he's probably gonna do it because, you know, that's what heroes do. So Namor, he starts saying, like, I mean, do y'all allow yourselves to get manipulated to, like, too? Like, is that what y'all do? And Adam Brashear is like, that's cheap, you know, stuff like that. And Namor says, I never agree with the decision, right? Like, you made the decision, I respected it, but I never agreed with it, you know? And Namor, he's just telling them about all his adventures, like, with the invaders, like World War II, you know, stuff like that. And he's like it's basically seeming like he's trying to convince Adam Brashear to like just go and start just becoming a tyrant, right? Like just forcing people to change, right? You know, like it seems like that's what he's doing, right? Because like Namor, he's very aggressive. He's a king, and he'll do anything to protect his kingdom, right? And it basically seems like he's trying to get Adam Brashear to understand how he treats, well, or how he is as a king against people who aren't a part of his kingdom, right? So it goes on like that for a little bit, and eventually Adam Brashear shows up to Anti-Man, right? Like him and Anti-Man are going at it, and, you know, they're just basically fighting. Well, Anti-Man's actually fighting. Blue Marvel's just trying to talk to him, right? Blue Marvel's actually trying to like convince him to stop, right? Like he's still trying to convince him to stop. He's trying to have a conversation with him. You know, he's basically just trying to get him to chill. But eventually we find out like they were super close. Like Blue Marvel and his wife and Connor Sims and his wife, you know, they would go out and do stuff. You know, they were real close, like all four of them, right? But eventually when Connor Sims became Anti-Man, he had to take the family of Connor Sims and hide them away from him, basically, so he was not a danger to them, right? So eventually Connor Sims, you know, he starts talking about the way that, you know, African Americans were treated back then, right? And Connor Sims, he's basically showing contempt for how Blue Marvel, he didn't try to forcefully make people change when it came to the African Americans at the time, right? Because he could have easily done it. Him and Connor Sims, they would probably be on the same side. He could have easily just like looked and been like, okay, this is gonna stop. No one's gonna do anything. That's why the government was so scared of Adam Brashear, because he could have done it, right? And when he says that, like, you know, like stuff could have, I couldn't do that. Like it had to, you know, take its natural course, right? Connor Sims, he gets mad, right? Like he just starts charging himself up, and he like punches Adam Brashear, right? Sends him flying, and he's just like knocked out. And Connor Sims, he takes off. Adam Brashear is out of commission. So if you are new to the channel, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all in the next one.